Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to the Daytona International Speedway, as we are now one day closer to the running of the 62nd annual Daytona 500. It is a cloudy and kind of a chilly day here in Daytona, but we had Daytona 500 pole qualifying take place just a couple of hours ago. As you see, the cars are on track practicing for the duels from Daytona, which will be taking place on Thursday of this week. But we are going to be going back in this video and taking a look at what took place in Daytona 500 pole qualifying and show you who qualified where as we get set to line up the duels for Thursday night. I'm Rick Bird here in the broadcast booth. Happy to have you along with us here from Daytona. Later on today we had the ARCA Menard Series season opener, the Lucas Oil 200, driven by General Tire. That race was supposed to be held yesterday, but due to rain, it was pushed back to this afternoon. But for right now, we are going to be taking a look back at what took place in qualifying. Now, in the last couple of years on this channel, what we have done is we've posted qualifying within like a 1 hour and 30-minute video. But that took way too long, obviously, to make and to watch. So what we have done this year is a little bit different. It's going to be a lot shorter video, and we're just going to show you who qualified where. That way you can see who's entered in the Daytona 500, who's locked in, who's on the front row, give you a lot more details. That way you're not so blind as we head into speed weeks for the later part of this week. Now, one big change I do want to mention before we get started is one of the biggest news NASCAR revealed over the off-season included the maximum starters for the Daytona 500, as well as the season opener for the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Gainer RV and Outdoor Truck Series. But for the Daytona 500 and just the Daytona 500, NASCAR announced that 42 cars will be able to start the Great American Race instead of 40 cars, which is what it's been the last couple of years. Also, Xfinity. The maximum field has been shrunk down to 38 cars for 2020, but for Daytona and just Daytona, it will be back up to 40 cars able to make the race on Saturday. And for the Truck Series, the normal field size is 32 trucks, but it has been expanded back to 36 trucks that will make the race on Friday night. This is a chance to give a lot of these smaller teams a chance to compete in the biggest race of the year, the biggest race which offers the biggest purse, biggest prize money, and this is really going to benefit a lot of teams to be able to make the race here in speed weeks. Now, how does this affect the charter system for the Cup Series? It's pretty much going to stay the same. 36 cars of our 46 cars entered in the Daytona 500 are locked in. 2 drivers will automatically clinch a spot in the race on speed today, and we're going to show you those 2 drivers here in just a moment. And then in the duels on Thursday night, the 2 highest finishers in each duel race will also race their way into the Daytona 500. That is enough we need to know, we need to discuss right now. And now let's take a look at what took place and who qualified where for the Daytona 500 on pole day. The number 53 Rick Ruhr Racing Chevrolet of Joey Gase qualified 46 this afternoon. Joey Gase is driving a 4th car out of Rick Ruhr Racing, the only Rick Ruhr Racing car that is not locked into the Daytona 500. And because of being an open team and posting the slowest lap this afternoon, Joey Gase will have to race his way into the 500 in dual race number 2 on Thursday. But Rick Ruhr Racing slow cars would not stop there, as the 51 rookie Garrett Smithley would post a 45th quickest lap in qualifying. Garrett Smithley running full time in the Cup Series for Rick Ruhr Racing. Now, unlike his teammate Joey Gase, Garrett Smithley is locked into the show, but he will start deep in the field in his dual race on Thursday night. Qualifying in the 44th position would include the number 46 of Timmy Hill. Timmy Hill is driving a second car out of NBM Motorsports in the number 46. No sponsors on the hood. That team is looking for some funding, but they are still here to race their way into the 500. This team is an open team, meaning that they must race their way in on Thursday. Qualifying in 43rd this afternoon would include another Rookie of the Year contender for 2020. That is the 15 of Brennan Poole. Brennan Poole will be running for Rookie of the Year for Premium Motorsports. Bad Boy Moore's on the hood of that Chevrolet this weekend. But good news for Poole, he is locked into the Great American Race. Qualifying back in 42nd would be the number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet driven by Parker Kligerman. Kligerman running a one-race deal with Spire Motorsports as he was let go from his ride at Gaunt Brothers Racing. But Kligerman also announced he will be back in the Truck Series this season for Charlie Henderson's number 75 team. But Kligerman, for right now, trying to get in the 500, and he is in the 500. He will be racing on Sunday. Qualifying back in 41st place would include the number 00 Starcom Fiber Chevrolet of rookie Quinn Houff. Quinn Houff going up Cup Series racing here in 2020, replacing Landon Castle at Starcom Racing. Quinn Houff qualified 41st in qualifying. Qualifying back in 40th place would include another Starcom Racing Chevrolet. That would be the second entry out of the organization, the number 99 of Casey Mears. Coming back to race here in the Daytona 500, he must race his way in, and because of his qualifying run, his only chance to make the 500 is to race his way in on Thursday night. He'll start 20th in dual race number 2. Qualifying back in 39th place would include the number 54 Pods Ford of J.J. Yaley at Rickor Racing. He'll be running full time for the organization here in 2020. Yaley, he's made multiple starts here in the 500, but in this year, he will be able to relax a little bit more as he will not have to race his way in. He is locked into the show. Qualifying back in 38th would include a rookie in the Daytona 500. That is Tommy Joe Martins, looking to make not only his Cup Series debut, but his first start in the Great American Race. He is driving the primary car out of NBM Motorsports, but just like his teammate Timmy Hill, Tommy Joe must race his way in on Thursday night. Back in 37th place would include the 52, that is veteran driver David Reagan. Coming out of retirement for one race here in the Daytona 500. He retired at the end of full-time racing after 2019, and David Reagan is here for Rickor Racing and Jacob Companies on board, and he is locked into the show in that 52 car for Rickor Racing. Qualifying back in 36 would be the number 27 Exchange of America's Chevrolet of Reed Sorensen for Premium Motorsports, another car that must race his way in on Thursday nights. All the way back in 35th is where you will find former 500 champion, the number 1 of Kurt Busch for Chip Ganassi Racing. His Monster Energy Chevrolet was only 35th in qualifying. 34th place would include another one-off team here in the 500. That is the Tommy Baldwin Racing Chevrolet of Justin Allgaier. Golden Corral, Brandt, Pilot Flying J all coming on board to help Allgaier make the 500, but he will have to race his way in on Thursday nights. Back in 33rd place, you will find former runner-up in the 500, Bubba Wallace in the 43, the STP colors, returning to speedweeks, returning to the Daytona 500. Bubba Wallace will start deep in the field in his dual race, as he was only 33rd in qualifying. 32nd in qualifying would include the Procore Toyota of rookie Christopher Bell. For Levon Family Racing, Christopher Bell was only 32nd in qualifying. He will start 16th in dual race number 2 on Thursday night. 31st in qualifying is the Geico Chevrolet of Ty Dillon out of Germain Racing. Ty Dillon was only 31st in qualifying this afternoon. Back in the 30th spot in qualifying is where you will find the slowest of the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas, the number 20 of Eric Jones. The DeWalt Tools Toyota was only 30th in qualifying. He'll start 15th in his dual race. 29th place is the 62 of Brendan Gaughan in his Beard Oil Chevrolet for Beard Motorsports. He is a car that has to race his way in, or he can also time trial his way in. He was 4th fastest of the open cars, so there is a shot Brendan Gaughan can still race his way in without racing his way in. He can rely on his qualifying speed. He was 29th in qualifying. And right up in 20th place is the same story for the 96 of Daniel Suarez. The Coca-Cola Toyota Camry of Suarez was only 28th in qualifying. Not of the fastest 2 open cars, but the good news is he was 3rd. And should one of the top 2 cars race their way in on Thursday night, Daniel Suarez will get in on speed. He was 28th in qualifying. Back in 27th place is where you will find the defending Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Busch. Still looking for his first Daytona 500 win. He was only 27th in qualifying. He'll start on row 14 in the duels. Qualifying 26 would be the number 37 Chevrolet of Ryan Preece, the sophomore out of JTG Darty Racing. Moves over to the 37 car here in 2020. He was only 26 in qualifying. Our 25th fastest qualifier would include one of the drivers who have 100% officially made the Great American Race. That is the 59 of Brandon Jones out of Levine Family Racing. Brandon Jones will be making not only his Daytona 500 debut, but he will also be making his debut in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series on Sunday, as Brandon Jones will race in the Great American Race. Qualifying back in 24th place would be the Credit One Bank Chevrolet of Kyle Larson. He was able to find a little bit more speed than his teammate Kurt Busch, but he was only 24th, and he'll start 12th in dual race number 2. 23rd fastest would include the 32 of Corey LaJoie for Go Fast Racing. A pretty solid lap for that organization when it comes to single car qualifying. This team has got a technical partnership with Stewart Haas Racing here in 2020, hoping for big things out of Corey LaJoie in that 32 car this year. He'll start 12th in dual race number 1. And the other driver who has made the Daytona 500 qualified 22nd this afternoon, that would be Colleague Racing's Justin Haley. The last time Haley was in a cup car at Daytona, he went to victory lane under the rain in July of last year, and Justin Haley has put this 16 car in the Daytona 500 with his speed in qualifying. He'll start 11th in dual race number 2. Starting back in 21st would be the number 19 Bass Pro Shops Toyota of Martin Truex Jr. He's won a lot of big races in his career, but he has yet to win the Daytona 500. Is this a year he goes to victory lane? He has a new crew chief with James Small atop of the pit box. He was only 21st in qualifying. Starting in 20th will be the number 8 of Tyler Reddick, the 2-time and defending Xfinity Series champion. Moves up to the Cup Series full-time in 2020, replacing Daniel Hemrick, last year's Rookie of the Year. But Tyler Reddick was 20th in qualifying. He'll start 10th in dual race number 2. And right up ahead of him in 19th would be his teammate from RCR, the number 3 Bass Pro Shops Chevrolet of Austin Dillon, the 2018 Daytona 500 champion. He'll start 10th in dual race number 1. 2 years ago, Alex Bowman was on the pole for the Daytona 500, but this year he only qualified 18th in his Valvoline Chevrolet. Valvoline stepping up to be a primary sponsor for a good chunk of races here in 2020, but Bowman will have to come from 9th place on the grid in dual race number 2. Qualifying up in 17th place would be rookie John Hunter Nemechek out of Front Row Motorsports, putting down a pretty solid lap in that number 38 for Front Row. He'll start in the 9th spot in dual race number 1. Qualifying up in 16th spot would be another Rookie of the Year contender, the 41 of Cole Custer, the Haas Automation Ford. Rookie of the Year candidate Cole Custer will start 8th in dual race number 2. 15th in qualifying was the number 21 of Matt DiBenedetto for Wood Brothers Racing, being teamed up with Greg Irwin. DiBenedetto replacing the now retired Paul Menard at the number 21 team. looking to have a breakout year. He was 15th in qualifying. We talked about Alex Bowman being the 500 pole sitter 2 years ago and starting deep in the field this year. William Byron's going to do the same as he was the pole sitter 1 year ago at the Great American Race, but he only qualified back in 14th place in his Exalta Chevrolet. Bowman will start 7th in duel number 1. Qualifying 13th would include a new driver behind the Fastenal Ford Mustang for Roush Fenway Racing. That is Chris Buescher, the 2015 Xfinity champion, reuniting with Carl and Jack Roush, and he will pilot the Fastenal colors full time in 2020. He was 13th in qualifying. Your defending Daytona 500 and two-time 500 champion Denny Hamlin qualified back in 12th in his FedEx Toyota Camry. Denny Hamlin will start 6th in dual race number 2 on Thursday. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the number 47 Kroger Chevrolet was 11th in qualifying, one of the most aggressive drivers when it comes to restrictor plate racing. Stenhouse will start 6th in dual race number 1. As we move into our fastest 10 drivers on pole day, it begins with the 22, Joey Logano, your 2015 Daytona 500 champion. Joey Logano was 10th in qualifying, and he'll roll off 5th in dual race number 2. Rick Almirola will continue the forward trend here in the top 10 as Almirola set the 9th fastest lap in his Smithfield Ford Mustang for Stewart-Haas Racing. Two-time Daytona 500 pole sitter Chase Elliott posted down the 8th fastest time in his Napa Chevrolet, one of only 2 Chevrolets to make the top 10 in qualifying. Qualifying back in 7th would be a big story for Front Row Motorsports and Michael McDowell for yet another year. Front Row Motorsports brings some fast Ford Mustangs to the restrictor plate tracks, and Michael McDowell will start in 4th place in dual race number 1. 13 years ago, Kevin Harvick won the Daytona 500 in a photo finish with Mark Martin. This year, he qualified 6th for the Daytona 500. On pole day, he'll start 3rd in dual race number 2. Qualifying inside the top 10 would be the Oscar Mayer Ford Mustang of Ryan Newman, another Daytona 500 champion. Ryan Newman will start 3rd in dual race number 1. Qualifying up in 4th place would be the 48 of Jimmy Johnson, the fastest Chevrolet in qualifying. Jimmy Johnson qualified 4th, and this will be his final Daytona 500, at least as a full-time competitor in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. This will be his final year racing full-time in that 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. Qualifying 3rd and right there close to the front row would be the 14 of Clint Bowyer for Stewart-Haas Racing. Clint Bowyer, the Rush Truck Center's Ford Mustang, the fastest of the Stewart-Haas Racing Fords. So close to the front row, but he would only land in 3rd place. Starting 2nd here in the Daytona 500 is Brad Keselowski. For the first time in his career, he will start on the front row of the Great American Race. Still looking for that first Harley J. Irwin Trophy. Is this year Brad Keselowski finally goes to victory lane in the biggest race of the year. He'll start 2nd on Sunday. And it will be Keselowski's Penske Racing teammate Ryan Blaney, who qualified on the pole with his new crew chief Todd Gordon. Ryan Blaney will start on the pole for the 62nd annual Daytona 500 in his Peak Menards Ford Mustang. He will lead the field of green on Sunday alongside Brad Keselowski. So that is what took place here in Daytona 500 pole qualifying earlier this afternoon. So what did we learn from this qualifying session? Well, we learned Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski will be on the front row for the Daytona 500. We also learned that Justin Haley and Brandon Jones are locked into the Great American Race with their speed in qualifying. But should those guys transfer in with their duels, that will open up the spot for Daniel Suarez and Brendan Gunn to possibly get in on speed as well. So that is all for right now of the Cup Series on track. Next up will be ARCA Menard Series action from Daytona, the season premiere of the 2020 ARCA Menard Series season. That will be taking place here in just a couple of moments here at the track. From Daytona 500 pole qualifying, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in and watching this review video on what took place And from the Cup Series Garage, we will see you Thursday for the Blue Green Vacations Duels from Daytona. Goodbye, everyone.